Hey everybody, welcome to Module 6. I can't believe we're already in Module 6. Module 6 is kind of that last module of some new topics and some new assignments, and Module 7 is a shorter module, and it's really just that wrap-up piece. So kind of the last week that we're going to dig into a couple different topics, and I can't believe we're just flying through this class. So this week we're going to explore digital communication tools. We're going to explore authentic audiences. And we're going to explore professional learning networks and how we can use technology for all of these things. So I'm going to just do a quick little snapshot on all of these, and then I'll do a different video on the assignment so that you can kind of know that what we're doing for the assignment. So the first one, the digital communication tools, that's going to be a discussion board this week. I have seen in a lot of stuff you're posting, a lot of you guys are already using digital communication tools. So please don't feel like you need to try a new one this week, but I instead want to have a discussion about digital communication tools and kind of what are the benefits and what are the drawbacks of digital communication tools and kind of what are the expectations. As we probably all noticed, some teachers do a lot on their digital communications tools, and some teachers do the bare minimum. Some teachers don't use them at all, and we kind of need to find that happy middle ground. Parents do expect that we are using digital communication tools anymore, and they expect to be kept in the loop with some of the stuff that's happening in our classroom and things that are going on with their students. So we need to find ways to do that. If you are an elementary teacher, I'm so sorry. Seesaw would be a huge digital communication tool that I would strongly suggest you use, because not only can the teacher communicate with the student and the parents, but the parents can also see their child's work and what their child is learning in school, which is obviously really awesome. Students can post themselves, so it's taken a little bit of the load off the teacher to have to be the only one posting out there. I know we mostly have middle school, high school teachers in this class, and a lot of times when we have middle school, high school, the digital communication stuff falls to the side a little bit. And I would really challenge you to still use a digital communication tool for your course or your courses all together, if that's easy. Usually in a middle school, high school, we might see things like using Remind or using Twitter or things like that. Not necessarily Seesaw. We obviously use our learning management systems as well. But I would really challenge you to pick a tool like Twitter. Some people use Instagram that parents can connect to so they can get a little bit of a glimpse of what's happening in your classroom. Now, I'm not saying you need to post something every day, but I would post something maybe once a week. You could have students in charge of this, like you are in charge of it this week. Pick something that we did this week in class that you think we should post out so that people can see what's happening. This would be also a great thing to share with, administrators, with school board, with people in the community so they can see the cool things that are happening in your classroom. So digital communication is huge. It's kind of expected anymore. If a teacher is not using a digital communication tool, a lot of times it's frowned upon and people are wondering why. So I would make sure you pick a tool that you can use, and then in the discussion board we'll talk about that this week and kind of like what should we be posting, how often should we be posting. So I'm guessing again a lot of you guys probably already have a tool that you are using. But if you don't have a tool, check out the discussion board to see what others are using, or reach out to me and I will help you pick a tool that you feel fits with you. So that's one topic this week. Another topic this week, also in the discussion board, is really that idea of having an authentic audience for our students. This, again, is kind of the same idea as the digital communication tool in the sense that we are kind of connecting our students with outside of our walls. And to me, that's one of the most powerful things of the technology in our classrooms is that it opens up. I just always in my head just have this picture of like busting down all the walls in my classroom and being in this open classroom, and that these students can be connected with so many different people, like around the world, around the country, around the state, wherever it may be. And so one of the more powerful ways to do that is to really have an authentic audience for your students. It gives them purpose. It makes them a little bit more accountable because they know that not just their teacher is going to see what they create or what they do. So do some research on authentic audiences. If you just search it, I would just suggest you search like authentic audience for education, and you'll see some articles in there. And then just kind of you're going to be brainstorming some lessons. So how can we have that authentic audience for our students, saying like, okay, we're going to do this lesson and then you're going to post it out to Twitter and get feedback from people. Or there's such thing as Flipgrid Pals, or Grid Pals they're called. So you're going to do your speech into Flipgrid, and we're going to be connected with a classroom that's in a different state, and those kids are going to provide feedback or things back to you. So really building that authentic audience for them so they find more purpose and value in what they're doing and creating for your classroom versus I'm just creating this for just my teacher to see it, and then my teacher grades me, and really the rest of it doesn't matter. So find ways to build that authentic audience. I'm not saying it needs to be for every assignment you do. That would be impossible. But could you do it for your like culminating activity at the end of a unit where they have ways? It doesn't even have to always be something virtual. Obviously, I know that with COVID, it's hard. We can't have a lot of people coming in. But you can, I've seen a lot of places, and we did some of this too in my classroom. We used to always make iMovies about books we read. So it was like a book trailer, and then they showed those book trailers, like movie trailers. We always showed it to kids in other classrooms, but I've seen places that actually will do it, open it up for public or for parents or whatever. Obviously, that's harder to do with COVID, but we could still share those out. You could put those out on your webpage. You could have people go out there and view them. So just how can you build that authentic audience for students so they're getting feedback and they're connecting with people that are not just in their classroom? And then the last one, again, is kind of the connection piece, but it's for us as educators. So having a good professional learning network is huge as an educator. That's how we grow. That's how we learn from each other. That's how we troubleshoot. And a lot of times our professional learning networks are just our coworkers that are teaching the same thing as us. Maybe we connect with a friend that we knew from college or things like that. But the benefit of technology is our PLN can get huge. It doesn't have to be limited to the people that I can meet with face to face. I can build a PLN with so many people around the country, around the world that are interested in the same things as I am. So for example, when there was just a small group of us last year that really wanted to dive into gamification, we knew we needed to find other people that wanted to dive in, that knew about it or had already dove into it. And that's when we started hooking up with some of these experts. So John Meehan's one I've talked about in here multiple times. We actually had multiple phone calls with him and just bounced ideas off each other. So we need to build that PLN. So we're going to work through that this week. If you feel like you have no clue anybody, you've never really connected or listened or watched or viewed or whatever, anybody's work besides within your building, classroom, whatever it may be, this is going to be huge for you. So I would say, I mean, as much as I absolutely love my coworkers and I do learn from them, I learn way more from going on Twitter. So I go on Twitter and I check out Twitter and I see what's on Twitter and I get ideas from there. I don't always post a lot myself. I don't always tweet a lot. I'm not a big tweeter, but I consume a lot. So I consume a lot from Twitter, and have learned so much from Twitter. There's so many people on my Twitter PLN that I learned so much from. And I've also like thrown a question out. If I just really need help and support on something, I throw the question out to people that I'm connected to on Twitter, and I get some amazing responses. So this week is really about building those connections with parents using technology and other stakeholders, school board members, student connections outside of the four walls. How can we use the technology to connect them with people around the world, people around the country, people around your state? And then as a teacher, you need to build those connections outside of your building that you can learn from other people. So technology obviously can be awesome for so many things, and we've talked about so many ways that technology has changed the way we teach and learn. But that connection piece to me is one of the most valuable pieces of using technology as a professional in my classroom and with my students. So find ways to use technology to connect with other people outside of the four walls of our classrooms, because really just teaching our students in the four walls of our classrooms and ignoring everything else that's going on around and not building that connection with them, we're kind of doing them a disservice. So let's connect them with everybody outside of our classroom as well. I do want to bring up just a couple other things that I've seen come up, like in discussion boards and things like that. I've had a discussion with a few of you actually about pre-assessments, and we've talked about sometimes even the pre-assessment might hinder a student's ability to demonstrate their learning. So if I give a multiple choice pre-assessment and this student did really well on it and this one didn't do very well, but I know this student knows it, maybe they're not good at multiple choice. So now I'm kind of setting them up. Even in that pre-assessment, I wasn't really finding exactly what they know. So I've talked with a few of you actually about the thought process. And again, this is something you could think through if you feel like your students would benefit from it. But the idea of giving options for a pre-assessment as well. So maybe you can take the test and quiz for those of you who are good at that, or you can create a video for those of you who are good at. And then that way I can really know where you're at. Sometimes a quick check-in test or quiz doesn't give us a clear picture of where they're at. It will definitely depend on how your lesson is set up. So if you're having students kind of test out of standards or test into standards, you definitely do want to kind of figure out where they're at. But if you're just giving them the pre-assessment so you have an idea and then they're still going to work through the work at their own pace, you're probably fine just giving one pre-assessment. But just something to think about. Do you need to vary your pre-assessments as well so that you make sure all students succeed if they know the topic? And then the other thing that came up quite a few times in our discussion boards is really just that next year at the beginning of the year, we really need to focus on our social emotional learning and the mental health of our students. And we need to start there. And we've talked a lot in the discussion boards about how I think a lot of people are going to say we need to throw technology to the side at the beginning of the year because we've had so much technology, but really a lot of students have learned how to communicate through technology. And so we need to give that as a venue for them. Some of them don't. Some of them would very much rather talk to you face to face. And that's awesome. But some of them would put something in a discussion board and would really like to, or in a Flipgrid or in a other video too, they would really like that connection with you. So please don't throw the technology to the side and say, well, I'm focusing on social emotional learning and I'm not focusing on technology right away. Students, you might need to use the technology in order to have them feel open and willing to communicate their social emotional learning needs. And we also talked a lot in there too that until we can meet, I know this is really not technology related, but it has come up so much in our discussion board, but until we can meet our students' social emotional learning needs, we can't really expect them to actually learn anything from us. So we kind of talked about Maslow before Bloom's in the discussion board. We need to really at the beginning of the year next year meet their social emotional learning needs. And then once we feel like we have a good understanding and they feel comfortable and confident, then our teaching can begin. And a lot of times we feel like, well, I can start teaching and I'll just get to know my students throughout. But really, until you meet their needs at the beginning of the year, it's really hard to teach them. So just think about that. And all of our students, even I know some of you guys were in person all year last year. It doesn't really matter. Our students have been through a very stressful, traumatic period in their lives, something they've never had to go through before, something we've never had to go through before, a lot of uncertainty. So just realize that even all students, I say this, we had a discussion about this in our district as well. And I said, my 3 children who do well in school and come from a good home and, their time in quarantine and distance learning and all that stuff, they had the support of me being home with them all the time. And you would think that was probably a good situation for them. And you think of all the negative things that are happening for so many other students who are home alone or trying to take care of brothers and sisters and all that stuff. And yet my children as well have had some mental health concerns in the fact that they went from getting to see their friends and family all the time to not getting to hug their grandparents for over a year. So we just have to remember that all students, even students that are in a good home, have been through this traumatic event, and we probably need to think about how can we start our year in a place of making sure our students are okay, and then go into our teaching and learning. So that kind of came up a lot in the discussion boards, just like assessing those needs. And I just want to kind of address that and just make sure that we also realize that we can use the technology to do that. And some kids are going to feel more comfortable. I'm going to feel more comfortable in a Google Form survey telling you how I'm doing emotionally than I'm going to be if we are doing a video or I'm sitting in a class with you. I'm not going to probably raise my hand or come up and talk to you. But I might do it in a Google form. So giving them multiple means and multiple ways to express how they're doing is going to be very important. Okay, I look forward to see everything that you guys do in Module 6. I always say it, but I'm very honestly truthful. Please reach out if you need any help. So if you're stuck on your personalized learning lesson, I would love to help you. You can even just send it to me and say, hey, what are your thoughts? And I will give you some ideas. We can do a Zoom conference, whatever it may be. I love to actually just work with people through this. So please reach out. I'm more than willing to help and support you to finish up some of these things. And honestly, going forward, if you're like, I want to add more to this for next fall, please reach out to me at any time and I'd be more than happy to help you with that. So I look forward to seeing your stuff in the discussion board this week, and have an awesome week.